On the eve of hitting its 10th anniversary, the Division franchise has been in the news a lot in recent weeks, from buzz surrounding the highly anticipated third entry in the series, to much debate over surprising developer departures, and, what's likely most relevant to today's discussion, speculation regarding a rumored definitive edition for the Division 1 that may be coming this March for said anniversary. Fueled by all of this, I've been getting a lot of questions in the recent weeks from brand new players to the series asking, which game should I get? Where should I begin? So, today, I want to try and offer my answer. Hey everyone, RogueGold here. In this video, we're going to be diving into comparisons between the Division 1 and 2 and try to list some of the pros and cons about starting out with either game in 2026. And hopefully by the end, we can send off some new prospective fans toward the beginning of their Division journey, whichever game that may end up starting in. So, if you find this one helpful and you want to stay looped in for more Division content in the future, then be sure to subscribe. Have to take a moment to shout out and thank our channel members. As always, your support entirely makes the consistency of my content on this channel possible, so thank you so much for that. Without further ado, however, let's dive in. Now, before we get too deep into the weeds trying to decipher which game is a better starting off point, I want to offer you the short version of my take on the matter. I know some of you just want a clear-cut answer to this question, so I figured let's just give that right here at the start. The Division games are online, looter-based RPGs at their core. I assume you knew that if you made it so far as to seeking out this video, but in case you did not, then there you go. In light of that, if your desire to jump into the Division franchise is purely to get that experience, you want a modern looter shooter with fun gameplay, refined mechanics and systems, and populated servers, then I have to recommend jumping straight into the Division 2. Because while both games offer you that classic looter loop, the Division 1 has not been a live game since 2018. It no longer receives new content or updates, and its player base has considerably shrunk because of it. Additionally, due to the nature of being a sequel, the Division 2 has a vast amount of improved UI, quality of life elements, and other small touches that in my opinion make it an overall smoother experience. So, again, if your goal is to jump on the Division wagon, so to speak, the Division 2 is in one of its best states that it's ever been. 2025 saw it hitting its highest player counts in over 5 years. Additional resources have been allocated to the project, and it's got a robust roadmap and content pipeline laid out for the future as we patiently wait for the Division 3 to one day get here. On the other hand, though, the Division 1 absolutely still has its place. Many fans still believe that it is the better game of the two. I myself still consider it to be my favorite game of all time, because while it may lack in terms of having all the bells and whistles compared to a game that has continued to receive updates for going on 7 years with Division 2, what a vast majority agree is that Division 1 remains far superior in atmosphere and immersion. Its world, weather, sound design, and tactile gameplay feel stick with you long after you step away from it in a way that Division 2 just has never seemed to quite be able to recapture. Division 1's narrative is also considered by many to be much more straightforward and simply more compelling compared to its sequel, with better characters, pacing, and intrigue. So, if Division looks like a franchise that you plan to be invested in long term, especially if you care about story and lore, then there's no better place to begin than where it all began in Division 1. Experience the world and story, max out your character level, and loot up all the good gear, and by the time you feel finished, you should have a much greater appreciation for the Division as an IP as you carry over into the Division 2. Alright, well, now that I give you my bottom line opinions up front, hopefully that helped inform some of you. For the remainder of the video, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the nuance of each title, because there is a good amount to consider. Let's start with the Division 1. For any game that is going on 10 years old, especially one that is built up around multiplayer and a very live experience, the concern might arise for many regarding player base sizes, matchmaking queues, etc. Now, let's just get it out of the way from the jump. There is no denying that the Division 1's player base is significantly smaller than it was in its heyday, and compared to the Division 2, you're going to be waiting noticeably longer to matchmake for missions and other endgame content. That said, at the same time, I truly would not let this be the sticking point for whether or not you check check out Division 1. For one, the community that does remain playing the game is a very tight-knit one and are incredibly loyal, so if you are somebody who would take to seeking out a dedicated community to join and play with, you can absolutely find that. Or, if you prefer to rely on in-game systems, even if it does take a couple of minutes to find a group, most content has somebody out there running it. For context, this footage of the game's central social space was recorded the same day I'm recording this script in January 2026. And for being 10 years old, it's impressive how much foot traffic it gets. Now, in fairness, this current activity may very well be inflated due to an event that the Division team is currently hosting called Survive Fest. It involves going back and playing a beloved mode in the Division 1 to score new rewards in the Division 2. That said, I think Survive Fest perfectly demonstrates why another top concern shouldn't be too greatly worried about, and that is support from the creators. Whether it's events like this that fold the original game into the current day happenings, whether it is published roadmaps of global events that the Division 1 runs annually, or whether it's performance enhancements. The game just received a 60 FPS patch for PlayStation 5 last month. For those worried that the servers might close down tomorrow and they'll lose out on their purchase, the Division team has shown no signs of stopping support anytime soon. But do note that by support, I mean things like game access, connection issues, those sorts of critical areas. This is still a 10-year-old game, and as Ubisoft support agents have reminded the community quite recently, new updates or major bug fixes are not in the cards at this point in time. Hence why I stress that more than anything, Division 1 is a complete package experience, for better or worse. There's a satisfying beginning to end grind to partake in, but it's much more self-contained and rigid than the sequel. Before we move on though, it's worth pointing out that while I believe areas like quality of life, overall UI feel, and smoothness, and things like technical support are largely inferior compared to the Division 2, all of that gets thrown into question when you bring up the rumored 10th anniversary definitive edition, which may very well be why many of you are checking out this video. At the time of me making this, we have no confirmation about anything surrounding this release. It appears to be real given this poster appeared at an official Ubisoft event, but as far as a release date, price point, if one exists for pre-existing owners, and just what the hell it even is, are completely unknown. Optimistic predictions hope to see improved quality of life features, perhaps some carried over from the Division 2, or long requested changes like the implementation of crossplay, whereas some more realistic takes, I think, wonder if this will just include some minor graphical enhancements and perhaps a bundling of all content and cosmetic DLC packs. We will just have to wait and see, and certainly you can stay locked in right here on the channel for when we do get that future news. But just keep in mind that the definitive edition has the chance to shake things up as far as how worthwhile it is to jump into the Division 1 10 years later. Alright, but with that down, let's now talk Division 2. Because, again, while I think the Division 1 is the more iconic game of the two, and while it excels in areas like atmosphere, immersion, and narrative, as I mentioned in the TLDW section, the Division 2 is the undisputed king if your criteria is that of a live looter-shooter RPG title. Going on 7 full years of post-launch support, updates, and DLC have led it to being refined to a very smooth loop of looting, shooting, and doing it all over again. That's not to say that there isn't still room for improvement in some areas. I think it is impossible for any live game to ever truly achieve perfection, but in terms of progression, loot management, ease of farming, reward incentive, all of that, the Division 2 has gone through many iterations and improvements to reach the state that it's at today. And the one area that I have to stress for anybody contemplating whether or not to get into the game, in this case whether or not they want to hop into the franchise altogether, especially when taking a look around the market in 2026, the Division 2 offers some amazing value proposition for the amount of content you receive. The base game unlocks dozens, likely upwards of, or even surpassing 100 hours of gameplay, and that is just to complete the campaign and play through the majority of the endgame content once over. And the beauty of its model is that what few paid DLCs have been released over the years are completely optional content. They don't raise your endgame level cap or provide access to any must-play modes and content. There are some exceptions, like with the upcoming limited time realism mode that the team is releasing for the 10th anniversary that's going to be exclusive to the Warlords of New York DLC map, but at large, the endgame game, and all seasons and future updates are fully accessible to those who just own the base game, and that's even if you do own it. It's worth noting that The Division 2 is on Xbox Game Pass, so if you have access to that, even over on PC, you get everything that's on offer. And if you are wondering, there are no pay-to-win elements in the game. The microtransactions, while often pretty heavy-handed, are entirely cosmetic-based. Now, does this all mean that The Division 2 is the most perfect game of all time? No, certainly not. I've heard from many newer players that the vast amount of updates and content released over the years can lead to feeling a bit overwhelmed when first starting out. That is something that the team has tried to tackle in a few different ways, but I think it is a problem that any game of this age faces nonetheless. Areas like story often receive much criticism. Across the past 7 years, it has had its highs and lows, and starting from scratch can make it a bit hard to follow the exact chronology of things. So, in that sense, of the two games, The Division 1 is absolutely the more contained and digestible package, but as I think I noted earlier on, once you get the hang of it, the core, loop, and content cadence of The Division 2 feels quite natural, and with its largely free update model, it is the perfect place to fall into rhythm with that for a live game experience, and as we wait for the franchise to take its next big step with The Division 3. So, my friends, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the topic of where to begin with the Division franchise. Back with the original, or skipping straight to the sequel. There's no one clear-cut answer. I'm sure many of you watching will come away with a different decision in mind, but I hope this laid out the necessary information for you all to make that informed call. At this point, I would love to get your thoughts on this entire discussion. If you are a brand new or prospective player, where is your mind landing? After hearing my arguments, what remaining questions do you potentially have? Or if you're a veteran watching this, what is your take on the best place to start for the franchise? Let me know. I'll be curious to read it all. That's gonna do it for me on this one though. Thank you all for coming by and watching, and until I see you next, RogueGold out. Oh! We just got a Ravenous! Haha! I might not be friendly. Let's go.
Coming to the Division 2.
Let's go.
And